Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Today is the first session of an 8-part series on healing from trauma and violence, and I work specifically with survivors of violence. Let me explain a little bit about myself. My name is Reverend Dr. Trinity Ordona, but I go by Trinity. And I've been doing this specific work with survivors of violence since 2003. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a survivor myself. I was molested by my older brother, I think when I was 5 or 6 years old. And the reason I know that is I went to Catholic school. And in 2nd grade, when you take your first Holy Communion, they teach you all the commandments. And of course, I remember the day very clearly when the nun came in. And she said to all of us, 7-year-olds, she said, "Now none of you could have done this." And she proceeded to talk about what are called the adult sins. Thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Now, we of course didn't even know what those words meant. But to myself, I felt I had done it. I felt guilty. Those were so-called the sins of the flesh, even though I had no idea what that really meant. So I found myself feeling very guilty, and actually before you take your first Holy Communion, you go to First Confession. And I remember sitting at church and then going into the confessional, and as a little child trying to confess to the priest these sins of the flesh that I didn't even have words to explain, but this tremendous guilt. And so that's why I know it happened before I was 7. I don't exactly know when. And subsequent to that, it was not until I was then 35 that the issue came up in a very big way. And that was because by that time I was living here in San Francisco, and I got a call from one of my family members in San Diego, and he called and told me that I needed to go over to my oldest brother's house where he lived with his family in Alameda nearby. And I asked, well, what was happening? And he said that he didn't know, but it had to do with him and his daughter. And as soon as he said that, I knew. And I knew it had to do with sexual molestation. And it's not because he had molested me. Actually, the brother underneath him, the second brother, had molested me. And it's not that, and my eldest brother then had molested my older sister. And as I said before, it's not that my sister and I ever talked about it, I just knew it. So that was a number of years ago. I'm now 58, and I fell into a long depression that lasted for about 5 years. I changed my life very radically. I went into therapy, support group. I went into what's called recovery, which it is. And my life changed for the better, and I was pretty happy, got involved in a very stable and happy and supportive relationship. But after about the first 10 years of that, therapy and support work and all of that, I also felt that I had plateaued, that there was a certain level of understanding about my situation and the origins of it, and I could literally, as I'd say to other people, I could tell my story backwards and forwards, but the story was still the same, and there was a part in me that was still locked up. And I was functional as long as I could avoid those parts of my life that brought the issue up, or certain titles or certain books or certain issues, then I was fine. But it was like walking this way through life, here, there, and sometimes back around again. And I actually remember 10 years later when my niece, who was then 26, came back to visit. I was fine for the first 2 or 3 days that she was visiting, but then after that I was back in Wonderland, in the rabbit hole. And I said, there's got to be another way. And that's what made me open to then looking at other healing modalities. Homeopathy, acupuncture, meditation, applied kinesiology. And basically, through a combination of these different things, when I was later in my 50s, when I brought them together, then did I find this really, experience a synergistic effect in which I actually, as I explained to other people, I got to the other side where I was actually able to stay in the light and no longer falling back into the hole. And so even though I was relatively new to this, and it wasn't anything that anybody taught me, but it was something that kind of just came together from these different healing modalities, that I decided I better just tell everybody. I felt like Sojourner Truth telling everybody, you know, Underground Railroad, we get out of here. So that's what I've been doing. So now I've been teaching this work for the last 5 years, and this represents to me certain stabilization and of the practice and my experience now in working with survivors of violence. So all of that to say that I do this work because I've been there, I know what you're going through, and it's and all I'm trying to do is share with you what has worked for me, break it down and teach it to you in a way that will work, that'll be understandable, so that you can try it yourself. And there'll be parts of it that work and parts of it that do work. And that's the part that you need to then piece together, because each person's going to be different, their stories are going to be different. But there's many ways to cook, but as long as you learn to cook, you're okay. And that's what this is about. Okay? So, thank you. So, let's go on. Let us start first with a few practices that I would like to encourage you to use every day. And the first thing is just using your breath. So everyone just take a deep breath. If it helps to close your eyes, do so. I do, but you don't have to. So just take a deep breath and relax. Relax into your seat. Allow yourself to feel the bottom of your feet. Kick off your shoes if you can. It works really well. You know, crinkle your toes and move your body and just be here. And with each breath, say hello to your body and let your body say hello back. Say hello to your breath and let your breath say hello back. And now say hello to your spirit, to your being, and let your spirit, your being, say hello back. 3 deep breaths. And now, in your mind's eye, create a giant hole in front of you and just take a deep breath and let go of everything that is not now. Let go of worrying about, does this work? I'm foolish to be watching this. Just let that go. Take a deep breath and let go of tomorrow's list and today's list and what am I supposed to do list and I don't know what to do list. Just let that fall off. Now use your breath. And use your breath to bring calmness and awareness to any part of your body that feels any kind of tension. Maybe it's your head. There you go. Maybe it's your shoulders. Maybe it's your neck. There you go. All right. Now, imagine at the top of your head a ball about the size of a volleyball and fill it with gold energy. And gold energy is your highest information. And what that means is that each person has their own signature gold energy, which is a way for the universe to mark itself with you, which is part of the universe.